This has caught my attention recently. Alan Ford on the Education Forum is coughing and talking about part of the Alkin 6 photo that shows Doorway Man and Carl Edward Jones, I think his name is. And here he presents the version that he said was shown on CBS News first by Walter Cronkite. It's a very poor quality version of the doorway scene because I think it was probably screen saved from a videotape of a television broadcast. And this is the Alkin 6 photo, and this area in here is the area of interest today, the doorway. And this is the reference version of this doorway area that I'll be using today. And this is the person I call Doorway Man, side by side with the CBS version that Alan Ford posted. And Doorway Man is commonly said to be Billy Lovelady, and some people, myself included, think that it's somebody else with Billy Lovelady's face pasted on top, but we won't get into that in this video. This arm here is commonly thought, and by myself too, and I never gave this much thought, but I just thought that was the arm of Doorway Man, the higher guy standing there, and that he's got his arms, maybe he's got his hands clasped together, and it's, you know, like he's covering his crotch or something, because, of course, it looks like it's made of the same material. The sleeve looks like it's made of the same material of the shirt or the jacket or whatever he's wearing. We're not going to get into Doorway Man. But actually, if you look at this picture carefully, you will realize that this is the arm of the black guy, Carl Jones. And but in the CBS version, it's very different, of course. It looks very light, whereas it certainly doesn't look like the same material being worn by Doorway Man. And this insert here is another photo of Carl Jones. And you can see he's wearing a long sleeve shirt. He has black skin, of course, on his arms, but the shirt sleeves are light. So it looks like here that the CBS version is closer to reality than my reference version, which is the version you always see everywhere. The high quality versions all look like the one on the left. But the CBS version was an early release of this photograph, and apparently the arm has been altered since CBS aired it. Now, I forget who said so on the Education Forum thread, but it was opined by somebody that they, the editors of the photography, wanted this arm, or wanted to give Doorway Man an arm. I don't see why they'd want to do that, but that was an opinion expressed there. And I think the person expressing the opinion didn't know why either. And I don't see why that should be the case here, because he doesn't need that arm like that. His arm could be anywhere. It could be down in his pocket or something. You wouldn't need to do that. Doorway Man does not need that arm. Well, I went looking through scans of newspapers from November 22nd, 1963, because I wanted to see if there was another early version of this photograph that looked like the CBS and not the standard version. And the only one I could find was from the Philadelphia Inquirer here. And this arm looks an awful lot like the one that Alan Ford said was shown on CBS. But it's different from our standard version. It's clearly much lighter than its background, and its background is Doorway Man's clothing, so it doesn't look at all like it could be Doorway Man's arm. So clearly I think this is a different version. And looking at the arm in the newspaper version, which is the enlargement on the right here, that arm doesn't look like it comes from Carl Jones. In fact, you can't even see Carl Jones. It looks like it comes from somebody who's standing closer to the camera and lower than Carl Jones. In fact, it looks like there's a dark sleeve on there, a short sleeve, and a lighter arm going beyond it. So I don't think this is the original version. I think this is an altered version, which tries to make it look as though this arm is not coming from Carl Jones. In fact, it's like they don't want you to see Carl Jones at all. So maybe this is more about Carl Jones than it is about Doorway Man. Now allow me to draw your attention to this fellow here behind Doorway Man, whom people say is Bill Shelley, but who knows? In fact, I've come to rather doubt that it really is anybody. But he seems to be kind of a cut and paste in there, or at least his white shirt and necktie seems to be something of a cut and paste in there. It's just the way you can see it through Billy Lovelady's face, or at least the lower left portion of his face, where he has no lower left face, and the way it seems to cut off his shoulder. It's a funny looking thing. And I think we have the suggestion of fingers here. That's what it looks like to me. I've been looking at this for years and never noticed it before. But now I'm beginning to think that's a hand. It looks like somebody splotched out some white over the bottom part of it. But it looks like there may be a couple fingers there, knuckled like it's a fist. And this suggests to me the possibility that what's being hidden here is the fact that Carl Jones has his arms raised and he's got his hands in a fist or something, and that would explain what's going on with the arms. That is, they're not trying to give arms to Doorway Man. They're trying to take away the arms of Carl Jones so that we don't notice that he has his hands raised as if he's giving somebody a signal. And note, Doorway Man is looking at the camera, and that's in the direction of the limousine, but that's not where Carl Jones is looking. He's looking behind the limousine. And I can't tell exactly what he's looking at, but it's in the direction of the cars following the limousine, and could conceivably be LBJ's car or the Secret Service car behind it. And that's why I drew the red line from where he is across the Alkins photograph to show things he could be looking at. He could be looking at somebody standing somewhere. But the frame on the bottom comes from the Wagman film, and the red dot is right over Carl Jones. The dot's probably about as high as his arms would be. So if you're in a car making the turn on the Elm Street and Carl Jones has his arms up in the air, you're going to see it. If you're looking for it, you're going to see it. And so I think maybe he's signaling one of these cars. Perhaps he's signaling LBJ, or perhaps he's signaling for the Secret Service car behind LBJ. So I think perhaps what we have here is Carl Jones signaling the cars behind that the target has been hit. And of course they would want to hide that. So it looks like perhaps their first attempt at hiding that was to make it look as though that arm did not belong to Carl Jones. And then perhaps they realized that wasn't a great strategy, and they decided to blend his arms into Doorway Man's coat or shirt or whatever it is he might be wearing, so that you don't notice the arm at all, or you have to study it to notice it, and only in high quality versions, because you're not even going to notice that version in the newspapers. You're not going to notice the arm at all. So that's my favorite explanation. I think that makes the most sense with this arm thing, that Carl Jones had him up in the air because he was signaling somebody behind the limousine, and the editors knew what that was, and therefore they would think it's very important to hide that. So they hid it. They hid it by, at first, they made it look as though it was somebody else's arm, and then they made it look as though it was part of Doorwayman's attire.